Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. And I'll call the meeting to order this evening for the Milton School Committee, January 8th, 2025, 7 p.m. And we will begin with a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. So the first thing to do is approve our agenda for this evening. And I know of one change, which is that we will be postponing our vendor warrants approval to the next meeting. Does anyone know of any other changes?
Do we have student representatives? They're not coming tonight, right? Yeah, so that would be postponed.
Okay, so just make an, postpone the topic altogether to the next meeting? Or do you want to?
Do you want to give an update or just?
I don't think it's fine.
I think maybe postponing it would be a good idea.
No problem.
Recording in progress.
So we'll postpone that topic under the chair's report, the report from student representatives, to our next meeting as well. Okay. So the first then item on our agenda, as usual, is our public comment portion of the meeting. And this is the opportunity for us to hear directly from members of the community who would like to share a perspective with us, and we welcome those comments either in person or online. Is anyone in the audience? I know we have Collycott Site Council present, but is anyone participating in public comment tonight? Okay. If you're online and would like to participate in public comment, can you please raise your hand at this time?
No hands.
No hands raised? Okay. Just give another few seconds in case you would like to raise your hand if you're attending online. Still no hands?
Nope.
All right. Thank you. So we'll just move on straight to the superintendent's report.
Great, thank you. I'll start just with some, not really sad news, but concerning news that we just shared with the community. We had a data breach. Power School did, actually. We didn't on any of our internal services, but Power School had I think kind of some kind of nationwide breach. We found out about this late yesterday, and they said, hold tight, we're going to share more information today. So we attended a webinar today, got all of the information. They believe it's contained and that none of the information has been shared. Fortunately, I think some districts have a lot of personal information stored within Power School. We don't have, for example, like Social Security numbers. It's not something we generally store in Power School. So we basically shared everything we know with the community about an hour ago in an email. So if you haven't had a chance to see that yet, you'll see that after the meeting. And we'll be following up if we learn anything from Power School about this that we need to share with the community more broadly. But in this communication this afternoon, they shared, as I mentioned, that they feel that they've talked with, they called it a threat actor, which is the person who took the data. So it sounded to me like there was some kind of ransomware type of thing where there was something paid to this person to delete the data. So unfortunate, but we're so far in terms of what we've heard from Power School, we're glad that it sounds like it's contained, and we'll share whatever information we have as Power School gives us more information. On more positive news, I met today with Lisa Troy, who is our representative on the Climate Action Committee in town, and Alexander Hasha, and they're working on a grant it's a 3-year grant to get a municipal energy manager hired for the town, which would be awesome. This is obviously a position we don't currently have right now. I think they mentioned 21 different towns and cities have this position in Massachusetts, so not very many. The intention of this position would be to work both with schools. So Tom McCarthy, our director of facilities, was also present today. So we'll be working with Tom and also working with the town and exploring ways to address issues with our buildings, probably find ways to pay for this position itself once the grant expires after 3 years, just given the kind of work that can happen in this space. I think we spend a lot of time on school committee talking about facilities and talking about planning ahead, and I see this position as could be like a really cool and vital part of our different committees that are looking at facilities, where we're going, what we're spending money on. And like, as all this technology shifts and changes over time too, someone who's helping to bring that into schools in a way that, when you give, if we put this on Regina's job responsibilities and said, and you're going to do energy management too. It's just like a little bit gets done when someone is just focused on that. It's way more powerful. So that's exciting. We have preschool information night is tomorrow night, which is a virtual welcome to families. That is at 6:30. Kindergarten information night's coming up on the 23rd. That's also virtual. On Monday, we're going to hear from Collycott here momentarily. We had a great teaching and learning event. We had lots of parents come, and Holly did a great job of sharing the vision for teaching and learning at Collycott. It was actually really cool to kind of be part of that conversation. Glover is next week, and Cunningham as well. So those events have been nice to have a kind of an informal forum for people to come in and talk and engage. And I think a lot of parents are used to coming into school events, and there's a kind of a big presentation, and this has been more of a kind of sit around in a circle kind of thing and just kind of talk about and engage and vision together, which is, I think, a neat opportunity to partner together and look ahead. That's my update.
Okay, great, thanks.
Any questions?
Questions for Peter?
Okay. So, am I second?
So that's the main event. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you for having us. Nice to see you all. I'll introduce everybody in just a moment. Can you still a big screen right here?
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're looking at the version that's not.
I should put a shortcut.
We're
in
You
the-
want to wheel this over a little bit so you can
it's
see that
whatever
better?
the shortcut
have it
one
right
is,
here
not
as well.
the.
So,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, school committee members, in your folders, it's the shortcut. I took the other one out of the folder and put a shortcut into the folder for this presentation
Okay.
because it's slightly updated.
It was updated.
So good evening. Thank you all for having us. My name is Holly Concannon. I'm the principal of the Collycott School, and it's my pleasure to come present to you tonight again with our school site council. Tonight, I have a few of our team members here. Catherine Peralta is our kindergarten teacher, and she'll speak tonight about primary phonics. Margot Tanzi is our community representative and has been on the school site council longer than I have. We appreciate you. Thank you. Ellen Lohan, our assistant principal and curriculum coordinator, and Olivia McGrath, who is a French and English teacher. And you can talk more about yourself in a little bit. Is that okay? Graduate of Milton Public Schools, French immersion, and current teacher with us. So we're really proud of our staff. So these are just some of our members here. We have a strong team. We meet monthly and with a lot of meetings in between as well, and emails and communication. But as a team, we've come up with a mission statement, and I know you have it and you can project it. And we shared this the other night at the teaching and learning meeting. And although I can't recite it word for word, we know this mission and we live by this mission. And it was something that was crafted by our school site council with input from many other subcommittees. So We have a commitment to academic excellence, as all schools do. We have high standards for ourselves, for teachers, and for students. We have a dedicated and creative staff, and they're committed to maximizing the individual potential of each child. Through a wide variety of challenging activities and experience, we strive to provide a strong academic foundation and a love for learning in a secure, safe, and stimulating environment that values individual differences. And we truly believe this encompasses academic excellence, personalized learning, and of course, equity. So I wanted to share a little bit about our school, as we do every single year. This year, we put side by side the numbers from last year compared to the numbers from this year. So last year, we had a total of 584 students spread out over 29 classrooms. This year, we have 621 students spread out over 30 classrooms. So we had an additional kindergarten classroom that we planned for in June of the summer. And luckily, we have a very flexible staff member who moved, set up, and got ready to teach kindergarten in a classroom that's not built for kindergarten, but has definitely made it work. We have 37 additional students, so although we have one additional classroom, we have 37 additional students, which means that our class sizes have increased. This year, we've received 15 new students in grades 1 through 5. And our kindergarten and third grade classes, they have the largest class sizes. This is the first time in my career as a principal that we've had kindergarten numbers this large. So we average 23 or 24 per class when all students are included. So it is probably the highest in your career as a teacher. But we're handling it, and children are learning and active each and every day. So doing our best with what we have. We typically try to keep our classes to 22, kindergarten, first and second grade, and then you'll see them increase in the upper grades. Right now, it's hard to envision 5 and 6 year olds moving into Milton and having a lot of choice in Collycott because we are now at max. So we're currently working together as a district. All schools are packed in kindergarten. So we're communicating all the time as new students come in. We just got one yesterday, and feels like he's been here forever. It was a great transition, but he came yesterday. So children they're coming, and we're happy to have them. But we're working as a district, all 4 principals, talking about best placements for students as they come in. But the numbers in our kindergarten class are pretty high, with little room to grow. So something we're thinking about and planning for. So I know that, we have had a lot of success at Collycott, and we still have tons of room to grow. But people ask a lot about our success, and without a doubt, the number one piece of our success is our staff. So Ms. Lohan's going to talk to you a little bit about some data about our Collycott staff.
So we are very lucky to have a school with an excellent staff, a veteran staff. So we wanted to think about our staff. We feel as though we know everything about our staff, but the best way to learn more is to ask. So we sent out a survey just to learn a little bit more and to quantify what we know about our staff. One of the most interesting things that we learned is our average Unit A teacher has 19.7 years of experience. So when you translate that into a classroom, that is bound for success. We have teachers who've taught different grade levels. They know the end product. We have kindergarten teachers who've taught 5th grade before. We have 5th grade teachers who've taught kindergarten and everything in between. So within our Unit A, we have an average of 19.7 years of experience. So even some of our teachers that we think are newer now have 8 years of experience, and we don't know how that happened. Time is truly flying by. 100% of our Unit A staff are highly qualified. So this means that they have all of the certifications through DESE, even those hard to find licenses, including severe licensure for special education. We always seek out candidates that have the licensure that's needed for the job, and we're lucky to say 100% of our staff do. We're also very lucky with our Unit D staff. We have had a very, very conscientious effort to recruit the best candidates. We are lucky at Collycott School to house our NEC and Partner program. So with that program, we have 3 classrooms. When I started at Collycott in 2012, we had 1 classroom. So this program has grown, and this partnership with the New England Center for Children keeps children who potentially would spend a lot of their day on a van or a bus traveling to Southborough, Massachusetts, here in Milton. So we are very lucky to house this program that really works on specific skills, including discrete trial and ABA skills associated mostly with autism, but some other diagnoses at time as well. So with this program, we have about 21 additional Unit D or educational assistant staff members, and they have excellent credentials. And this is one of the only positions we see turnover. And we don't see turnover because they're unhappy. We see turnover because they are becoming special educators with that severe license. They are becoming speech pathologists. They're becoming board certified behavior analysts. And Holly and I have made a commitment, along with Danielle Wetmore, our director of special education, to really foster these individuals. Some of them are giving up, they're not taking a lunch, so at their lunch they can shadow a teacher that has the licensure that they want. Some of them are staying after school and working with our BCBA so they can get those supervision hours to obtain their license. We learned through the numbers that 100% of our Unit D have participated in high quality professional development this year, but 55% of our Unit D are currently working actively to pursue a higher degree. So in the field of education. So that's something we're really proud of, and being flexible that we can help them to get to the next level of their career. And actually, I see Catherine Peralta is here. She was a Unit D staff member. She's now our kindergarten teacher. She's a leader on her team, our grade level facilitator. I started as a substitute and a Unit D member, so I really think there's a commitment to helping people who are interested and committed to doing the work, which means at night they're going to take their masters, they're doing classes, coursework on nights and weekends, but we're committed to helping people to advance their career. And even with our Unit A staff, 94% of our staff either want to remain in their position currently and retire from that position, or they're interested in continuing to advance their careers. So we have many people who are pursuing different certifications, special educators becoming reading specialists, classroom teachers interested in math specialists, reading interventionists. So we have a team with great experience, as the data shows, but they're also very committed to moving their careers to the next level. And you'll be able to read, I know you all have the presentation, some of the things they shared personally in the survey, and we just kind of asked the question, anything else you'd like to share? And people really opened up about how the people that they work with make their job a really special place to be. They talked about how they're interested in additional certifications, things of that nature. So we learned a lot about our staff. We thought we knew them well, and then we asked and they answered. So we learned a lot about our staff through our survey, but I think we just feel increasingly lucky to have the staff that we have. Nobody is resting on their laurels. People are participating in professional development and advanced degrees. So we are very lucky, and we want to continue to push our Unit D staff, as we have been, to pursue the next step in their career. And we learned a lot about some staff members who have some aspirations we weren't even aware of. So we're excited to continue this work.
So Margot, I was lucky enough to meet Margot a long time ago as a curriculum coordinator, and I was supporting Janet Chan when she was the principal, and I joined school site council, and Margot hasn't left, and we're not letting her. So Margot's going to talk to you a little bit about the Collycott community, which we believe is the second piece to the secret of our success.
Good evening, everyone. I taught myself for 35 years in Situate, kindergarten and first grade, and loved every day, and I'm so glad to be here at Collycott and be involved in the community. My husband and I have 2 children, Melissa and Jay, and they both went to Collycott, and they loved Collycott, as we did. So I'm going to share with you how Collycott's community engagement works. We start off with family and school. Holly and Ellen have been an amazing partnership at Collycott. The way they strengthen the partnership is through consistent monthly meetings and consistent weekly newsletters. DEIB is the committee that meets monthly at 7 p.m. and it's a virtual meeting. The monthly meetings create and sustain an educational opportunity in which all students are provided an inclusive, challenging environment that enables them to achieve their fullest potential. School Site Council meets monthly after school. The monthly meetings plan for academic excellence and high standards for administrators, teachers, and students. The Unity Project, this used to be called Meet the Artist, and Collycott caregivers who are parents, relatives, or neighbors enter the classroom to enhance student learning by providing new perspectives, opportunities for reflection, and pathways to action. And other activities are before and after school programs, Math League, Science Fair, Book Fair, Digital Citizenship, and World Read Aloud Day.
And we'd like to invite you all to World Read Aloud Day to come read a book.
It's great.
More to come.
Children love it. It's perfect. Collycott engages the community with these activities.
So
Thank you.
next, thanks, Margot. Olivia McGrath, again, Milton Public School graduate and French immersion teacher, is going to share a little bit about the way our systems and operations are working at Collycott.
It's my pleasure to be here tonight, and I feel like Collycott runs like a well-oiled machine. Just based on how highly communicative you've heard we are as a staff and administration, we have really an open door policy. I feel like I can go in and speak to anyone about anything, and I think that really speaks to who we are as a staff. But within that, we do have some school-based teams. We have our student support team, where we discuss academic needs of students and how we can make them more successful in the classroom. We also have the behavioral health team, which focuses on the social emotional component of the student. So we really are always looking for ways to support the whole student. And even casually, I know that we'll meet just based on teams and as a staff, and if we're having any issues or any areas of focus, we discuss it, and we want to know how we can improve with students. So we also have the DEIB, as you've heard, and of course the Site Council meetings. We have weekly meetings for the lunch and recess teachers who really know our students well, and it's really nice to see when they can come into a classroom and support us, and students know them and they know the students by name. So there's a real focus there on community, not just in the school, in the classroom, but when they're on the recess yard, when they're in the halls at school. So there is that really nice sense of everybody knowing the students. We have monthly PBIS meetings to support students and positive reinforcement. We have our Collycott Cardinal Compliments, which I think I might have given out like 100 today. I have like a stack like this on my desk. And we meet weekly for common planning time as staff, team-based staff, and special education meetings as well. When it comes to hiring, there's a really important focus on a team-based approach. So everyone's welcome to put their input in. There's a lot of respect for what the staff has to say, and as you can see, the staff likes to share how they feel, and everyone has a lot of good things to say about Collycott. But there's a lot of areas for growth as well, and even like no matter what position you're in, there's opportunity for growth, and within that, there's professional development that's really targeted and focused on areas of success for all staff. And within our own staff, we have a focus on diversifying and diversity. I work on the in the French immersion program, and I can tell you that within that staff alone, we have an extremely diverse cultural staff as well as life experience. And within our school, I could say the same thing. So there's a lot of richness that brings to our positions. And we also focus on community partnership. We have relationships with Milton High School and Milton Academy. The Milton Public Library has been a huge supporter, and they are always here showing our kids different ways to access books and opportunities. We also have a therapy dog named Gracie who visits, and of course the CPAC special ed. So there are a lot of things happening at Collycott, but all of which are great.
Thanks, Olivia. So we want to talk to you tonight about goals that may sound a little bit familiar, but we've tweaked them a little bit over the years according to our needs and our goals. So, of course, with academic excellence, we will always work to strengthen our systems and supports for high-quality teaching to support academic and social growth for all students, with the focus on our lowest performing students. But I will tell you that we also are consistently talking about how to enrich classrooms as well. Our goal 2, Collycott staff will continue to develop early literacy learning with the focus on phonics through personalized learning. And goal 3, our staff will maximize opportunities to engage students, families, and community members with the focus on equity. An example of that today, I just would like to thank the families who came out this morning. We had a coffee for the Unity Project where we brought all the books, the supplies, the materials, and people who have signed up to do them had a chance to hold the books and talk to our equity lead about the project and just become more familiar with the project before they come into the classroom. We also have a meeting tonight that's virtual. It's being led by our art teacher and equity lead, Laurel Bernini. So a morning in person and a nighttime virtual so that we could offer support for all. So the first goal, academic excellence. Here you see a picture of Fatim Kramer, grade 2 French, working with a small group. And our goal here is really, if we achieve this goal, we'll see increased opportunities in school-based programs, which will result in academic achievement and growth. In some ways that we hope to do that, we'll continue to increase opportunities for all students. Right now, we have a great participation in adaptive art, adaptive music, and adaptive physical education. These are separate classes for children with significant need, but also the same children will go to one of these classes for a second time during the week with their peers. So having this adaptive opportunity prepares children, gives them a preview of what's to come, and many of them are able to access the gen ed experience as well. We continue with our positive behavior intervention systems. We have monthly assemblies, and we recognize students daily, especially Olivia, with cardinal compliments, and those are given out by all of our staff, including our lunch and recess teachers, so there's consistent language and consistent recognition. Every Friday, we announce the Cardinal of the Week. We pick right out of the envelope, and one lucky Collycott Cardinal gets the Cardinal of the Week certificate for each grade level. It's a big deal. We continue to use the Second Step program for social emotional learning. This starts with our newsletter for Language for All Families, and it's included in our morning announcements, which we film typically the day before, and teachers can watch the announcements at a time that works for them. And this is in addition to the classroom lessons that the teachers do. Again, we talked about our therapy dog, Gracie. We have a speech therapist named Katie Egan, and her mother, who is a retired teacher and a retired nurse, and she was my kindergarten teacher, brings her dog to see the kids. And this is happening weekly right now. So we have a lot of children who really look forward to that visit. We try to be timely and consistent with communication from myself and Ellen. Also, our curriculum coordinators are constantly in touch with us, giving us information for our newsletters for our staff, but also for our families. The Collycott after-school sessions really build upon lessons learned in school, but also give children an opportunity to experience something that might be non-school related, which might include perler beads or karate or nature walks or kickball. We hope to find a way to continue offering Beyond the Bell programming for targeted students. So that's something that we're going to have to get creative with this year, but it's something that we hope to continue to do. We have a really strong grade 5 student council with a really fabulous agenda this week with meeting with Natalia Perez from Food Services. They really want ice cream back. I don't know that that's happening, but it's the goal. So grade 4 and 5 will continue to implement a model where students are able to visit other classrooms for specific learning. So in 5th grade, all students will have at least 2 teachers, so a homeroom teacher and then a science teacher. And then if they have French immersion, they'll also have a French immersion teacher. Again, the goal is to get ready for middle school, but now that's trickled down to 4th grade, where 4th grade teachers they're a really strong team. They plan together not weekly, they plan together daily, and they share students now. So students are, again, getting the benefit of 2 teachers. We are doing our best at including children as much as possible. Some children in our substantially separate programs are more ready than others, so they're included at their readiness level. And we're also working on reverse inclusion, where students from the gen ed classrooms are going to our substantially separate classrooms. And we're at the point right now where I have to tell children no. They all want to go, especially for indoor recess, to work. I say no because it's a management thing, that's all. But we're working on a systematic approach to that. We have all grade 5 students have applied for and received a job. These jobs include things like student council, classroom helpers, recess helpers, custodial helpers. So we'll continue to do that because we believe it helps build their confidence, which results in academic excellence. And of course, I will continue this year, as I started last year, working on students who are chronically absent. And we spent a good amount of time talking about that today and really thinking about why children are absent and how we can help them make up for any lost learning time. The second goal around personalized learning, again, if we achieve this goal, students will engage in educational experience that take into account the specific strengths, interests, and needs of each student. This picture here is it's from our grade 5 toy fair. And when we talk about personalized learning, wow, these children this was a STEM project using recycled materials, and students were allowed to design a recycled toy, and we had a toy fair right before the winter break. Families came in, and the rest of the school came to see the toys. And the level of engagement in this project was very impressive and fun. So we will continue using the new models for science and social studies in grades 4 and 5 that I just talked to you a little bit about. We hope to increase support for STEM and Project Lead the Way. Having a coach for Project Lead the Way, and Sarah Doherty, has been really helpful. This is a very rigorous program. It's a lot of material prep. And Sarah, who's with us, and Jen, who's with Glover and Tucker, have done an amazing job at preparing materials to make it more accessible for teachers, but also pushing in and making it less overwhelming for teachers who may be a little intimidated by it. Again, we hope to continue beyond the bell. As part of our CAS program, we do offer a homework club, and we've really targeted students who would attend that and who would benefit from a teacher helping them with their homework rather than family members. We'll continue working with Continental Math League. This is an old school program that has been at Collycott since I came, and it's something, it's a great piece of enrichment for children who are ready for it. It's a rigorous math experience, but we set it up in a way that all children can access continental math, so it's not always like a meet. Some children will do it in a small group with another teacher, they'll do it in pairs, but they're all accessing higher level math thinking. Again, we continue with ACE. Our 5th graders give up recess once a week. They've applied to be in an enrichment situation. And again, our teacher, Laurel Bernini, services those students there. Laurel Bernini is also working on the Unity project, which I'll talk a little bit more in the next slide. And we'll continue with homework clubs, science fairs, art shows. We'll continue celebrating our differences. Our 4th graders have a unit coming up soon. We hope to continue with the field trips that we have been participating in for all of our K-5 students, our assemblies. We use our student council. They make some pretty big decisions in our school, and they really tell us what the kids want. And so they're helping us make better decisions so that our children are more engaged and interested. And this year, we're really focusing on phonics in our primary grades in a way that feels different than in previous years. And Catherine's going to talk a little bit about that. So, last year we highlighted our 5th grade model, and this year we're going to talk in just a few minutes about the primary phonics focus. So our focus on equity, the result is students, families, and communities, and community members will feel more connected and have more opportunities to engage and participate in school events. I do want to take a minute to talk a little bit about the pictures here. Here we see 2 staff members supporting adaptive art, and the first staff member on the left is Molly, and Molly will be a candidate to be a BCBA at the end of the school year, but she's currently one of the Unit Ds that we spoke about. And Grace Kennedy is also supporting the second student, and she is a newly certified teacher, finishing out the year with us, but is now thinking the experiences she's had, it depends what day you ask her what she wants to do. She wants to do it all, and she can do it all. But that just highlights some of the things that we started to talk about with our staff. So when we think about equity, Laurel Bernini, our art teacher, and our equity lead is making a difference this year. It feels something is different this year. And I think it's Laurel being in the position and being supported by FA, by Ms. Schechter, and also by Cyrus Rivers. I think there's a clear team approach to the equity work, and Laurel has really taken a lead in our school with this. She took on the Unity Project as one of her pieces. She is an artist, but she also is very passionate about the materials in the books that have been chosen, and she's very willing to give her time to make sure that it's successful. Laurel also, as part of her equity lead position, started a new Instagram site for Collycott. It's something that I honestly wanted to do for a long time, and I would sometimes feel a little envious of other schools who were able to have these beautiful pages, but I just didn't feel like it was something that I could manage or sustain, and I was so afraid to start it and not do it right and then give it up, so I never did. And as it was Laurel's idea to start one, and if you follow us, and you should, you'll see what's happening. You'll understand what we're talking about, because she has a lens of equity for the Instagram page, and she's really highlighting some pretty magnificent things that are happening. I do think our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee is also very strong, and again, very appreciative of Adina and Cyrus for coming to meetings. FA's a little bit busy right now, but she was really helped us launch the school year, and we felt a consistent presence on Thursdays from the whole team, but could always talk to them throughout the week as well. We are continuing to plan what we hope are culturally competent assemblies and communicating special things in our newsletter on a regular basis. We're really accessing our students and their families to help us with that. So you may see students on the announcements talking about a tradition that they have in their family. You may see parents who send in video clips, and we include those in our newsletters and in our newsletters. We'll continue with our kindergarten and grade 5 Boohoo Yahoos. We celebrate or we commiserate, either way. It's something that we've been doing with kindergarten for a long time, and we started to do with our grade 5 families 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and now it's a part of our moving on ceremony where we invite Pierce Middle School staff to come down, greet the families, have coffee with the families before our moving on ceremony. So it's a nice transition activity. We have spotlight months for traditions and special cultural events to share. We'll continue with our gatherings. The way we meet at Collycott really depends on the meetings that we have. School site council, we always do right after school. A lot of our teachers want to participate but have to go home to families. In our DIB meetings, the team agreed that at night virtual was best for them, so we continue to do that. We have so many opportunities for families to come in and engage with our kids, and you've heard about some of them already. We have other things like Mystery Reader, Digital Citizenship Day in the past, World Read Aloud, again, coming in February, you're all invited, and accessing volunteers from Milton High School and Milton Academy. We have been working with Milton Academy since I've been at Collycott, and we have consistent volunteers come on a weekly basis. It was last year and the year before when Milton High School started to give us a community service day. And I know that's not easy to schedule, but we've really found a way to maximize our Milton High School volunteers as well. And it's so great to see so many Milton High School students working at our after-school program. So I've talked a lot about a lot of things, and I tried to do that quickly. But one thing we want to make sure to highlight this year is our focus on phonics in the primary grades, because there does seem to be a little bit of clear energy and buzz around from our primary teachers, both French and English. So Catherine, our kindergarten teacher, is going to talk to you about that.
Thanks, Holly. Serving as a teacher rep at School Site Council for the past 5 years has given me, a lot of great insight on the amazing things that go on within our school. Last year, I know we highlighted the grade 5 model. I'm happy to be here to share our focus on early literacy this year. This year feels different, I agree. I think there is a pivotal difference happening within our primary grades, specifically revolving around literacy and phonics. And I think recently, with so much focus behind the science of reading and how children learn how to read, this year we have in kindergarten grades 1 and 2 implemented the UFly Phonics program, which as a teacher can be scary, when you're teaching new things. But when you come together as a team, you really find a common ground. And I think right now our teams have been so consistent in collaboration and working to grow, whether it's learning together. I mean, we wouldn't be teachers if we didn't love learning, right? So it's been great to see. And I think, we all know that early literacy is the foundation for a child's lifelong academic success. And I think as primary grades, we are focusing heavy on phonics instruction. And our main goal is to use UFly in combination with our current Reach for Reading curriculum in order to develop some pretty strong skills in our youngest learners. It's been great to see. I'm looking at a lot of kindergarten friends on the screen right now. But I think, the secret to the success is the commitment from our staff. Classroom teachers are collaborating with other classroom teachers. We're collaborating with instructional assistants and reading specialists and early literacy coaches. As a kindergarten teacher, I work directly with Lauren Vanacore, our early literacy coach, and I'll tell you, she never misses a common planning. She is there to support, and I know in grades 1 and 2, they feel the same about, our reading specialists. And we are constantly working together in order to plan thoughtful lessons. And, we're analyzing data and we're doing what we need to drive our instruction to best meet the needs of all of our students. And, with the help of a great program like UFly, that's amazing. But, the commitment from our staff, I think, is something to be celebrated. And I feel really lucky to be here to explain that to you all today. The growth that we've seen in our students, I think, is tremendous. Since the beginning of the year, I've seen increased confidence, I've seen increased engagement, and we're seeing measurable growth within reading itself. I have a lot of organic conversations with my friends in education, but I was actually thinking about some of the conversations that I was having with my friends in the corporate world, when they always ask me, how's work going? And I get to tell them all the amazing things that we're doing. And as I'm looking at these photos and I see my kids and they're reading words, they're writing words, they're reading sentences and writing sentences. And when I have these conversations with my friends that aren't in education, their immediate response is, Catherine, we weren't reading in kindergarten. And it's true, I was not reading in kindergarten. And I think it just speaks volumes to what these students are able to do when given the tools. Our staff is so committed to not only teaching these students how to read, but also to provide them with the tools that they need to do so effectively. And I think that's really special. I think we are all working to master a new program, and within that mastery, I know multiple grade levels are focusing their professional practice goals around UFly and phonics instruction. It just shows the commitment that our staff has to our students. So I think that's definitely something to be celebrated. And I feel very lucky to be here today to explain that to you all. I really do. So, thank you.
And we know that everyone on this table has had the opportunity to look at data before, so we don't plan to go into everything, but we are available for all questions. The first slide after the Collycut data slide is just our spring 2024 iReady data, which makes me very happy when I see all of that green. But when I see some of the red, I'm actually excited about it too, because those are students who maybe typically were in our substantially separate programs and they weren't accessing iReady or assessments before on the computer. And the amount of teachers who will say, let's get so-and-so working on iReady. I think they could sustain doing this test. That's really exciting to us. And based on their IEP and where they're at, they might be 2 levels below if they're in grade 5, but getting them on there, getting exposure to grade level content, and finding a great plan of what math skills we should be targeting using these same tools is really exciting. We have more students taking the MCAS on the computer than ever before. So we are having children who maybe typically were taking the alt transition because they are ready because of experiences like this, using the Chromebook to do iReady, to do Dibbles, and to practice using iReady, not just the assessment, and practice using Boost through their Clever account. Having this experience with technology, it's been exciting, and it's been exciting to see students who we may have thought the MCAS wasn't the best choice for them to take it in the same fashion as their peers, but they're actually making great progress and we're getting great data from that. So that has been something that's been exciting to see. So our first slide shows how we ended the year last year, which was very strong. You can see a lot of green, and especially as students get older, we see more green as they have more familiarity with the concepts and by using technology as a tool. And then we go next to the fall iReady data, and just so everybody, I think most people here are aware, but that's one of the major tools that we will use to see who is picked up by the math interventionist. We're very lucky this year that we are supported by Kelly Murtaugh. Just at Collycut last year, we shared her with Tucker. So the impact is that we have more math support this year than we did in the past. So we're able to have more students receive this intervention. And Kelly has also been a strong member of our student support team, which has been great. She's been really being able to speak to the progress that children are making. And more so than ever, we're having conversations at SST saying, students are creating great interventions. Let's give these interventions a little bit more time to work. I don't think we need to assess for special education at this time. And with more time in these interventions, we're seeing less referrals to special education. So that shows me that students are getting what they need, especially when Ms. Murtaugh is working with students in grades 1 and 2. The impact is really strong. I wish she had a classroom. She's a great sport and she works right out of the little hallway by the photocopier sometimes, but she doesn't complain and she's making great progress with students. We also have our Dibbles data for you in the same fashion. We showed you where we ended. We see a lot of green and blue, which means of it on level and above level, which is really great to see. In the fall, the following slide kind of shows us where our work is cut out for us. I know that Vivu did a great presentation on the data for the MCAS. We have it available to you. We are very proud of what we have done, but even when we see little drops, our teachers are not resting and saying, oh, okay, you know, that's really good, or we outperform the state. We expect to outperform the state because we do have a school where kids are getting what they need. We have interventions. We have a very veteran staff. So we're always looking down to using a standard analysis, like for the science, looking at, oh, okay, which standards did we lose points on? Oh, okay, what that topic that's covered in 3rd grade but comes up on the 5th grade MCAS, how can we creatively use that as a review for the warm-up of our lesson, things like that. So just know that this is data that we look at. We know it's one snapshot of a child. MCAS absolutely does not define a child or who they are, but it's something that we look at thoughtfully when making planning for curriculum and maybe identifying any gaps in our curriculum and next steps. So we can certainly speak to all of it, but we know you've heard it before.
And on the last slide, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't forget to mention one of the most important people on our staff, and that's our administrative assistant, Miss Joanne Barker. Again, she has been at Collycut longer than any of us. Maybe not yet.
No, she's
Okay. So she's been, she's an integral piece of our success. But I did want to highlight that she is someone who also consistently pursues learning. She has been really an amazing help with Power School. Also, she maintains our website. That's not something she went to school for. That's something that she is teaching herself. She facilitates, she's basically the principal of our CAS program, which is our after-school sessions. And she really is consistently checking in on the way our school is represented by our website, and she takes great pride in that. And we really appreciate her. I also forgot to mention that she is the substitute coordinator for the district. So her mornings start at 5 a.m. with every sick call from all elementary schools, and she's in charge of finding substitutes. So I don't know if that's a job I would enjoy, but she does it, and she does it well. So again, just always learning and being super helpful. So just wanted to make sure that we mentioned her, and we already did mention Ms. Bernini as the equity lead. We feel like these two positions are really helping our school grow. So that's it in a nutshell. Hopefully we didn't keep you too long, but we are happy to be here. We're happy to work with each other. We're grateful for all of the supports the district has provided and the thought that's gone into the positions that have been funded. We appreciate that. So thank you all, and thank you for having us, and we're here if you have any questions.
Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. Questions, comments?
So you mentioned at some point that you weren't sure about Beyond the Bell for targeted groups. So what is the sort of the uncertainty of the way you're going to be able to do it right now?
Well, I think we're hoping for funding for the program, and so that's the big piece.
For this current school year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's do that.
I had a question about, you were talking about enrollment, the enrollment increasing. And so how does it work if there are siblings in school, and then there's a kindergartner that comes in, and if you're at capacity, like how are those decisions made because typically obviously we won't keep siblings in the same school. Is that a district level decision? Is that, because I imagine that you're probably, is that something you're running into now?
Siblings no, it's not something, I mean, we have run into it with our French immersion seats when during years, if there's a lottery, it's a true lottery. And so families may have been separated by choice if they chose to pursue French immersion, but families are typically kept together.
Okay.
And, there are a lot of gray areas between Collycott and Cunningham, and I actually live in one of those areas. So when my children were placed, they were placed in Collycott, but if it could have been a different year, they might have been at Cunningham. And then there's also some gray areas with Cunningham and Glover, and then Glover and Tucker. So we do our best geographically, and that comes from central office. But with the additional students who keep coming in, there's been a focus under the leadership of Danielle Wetmore to really look at the students' needs, and find the best placement. For example, if a student has English language learning needs that could be better suited at another school because there's a group that would provide really good support, we have conversations like that. And special education needs, looking at IEPs, and then deciding what school might be able to offer them the best possible home. But we are at the kindergarten this year, they just kept coming. I mean, September, October, it was a continual conversation. And, we all want to keep our class sizes low. So you do your best to spread the wealth so that everybody gets what they need. But I believe every school might be at 22, 23, 24 in kindergarten right now. And I know there's potential plans for next year to help out with that.
Thanks.
Yeah, there's a needs-based position.
We need to build on to the building. We just don't have another classroom at Collycott anyway.
Thanks.
I can go. Again, thank you so much for being here, for sharing all this fantastic. I really love hearing about it. Just a couple things of note. I want to thank you now that we've got publicly the MSBA coming out. I want to thank you particularly with all the help you did to help get us the MSBA kind of support from the state with hosting the tours and the walkthroughs. So John unfortunately missed it because he came too early in the year, but you were here, and I just didn't want to miss this opportunity to just say you were a big part of that. I don't know if we would have gotten it without it. So thank you. Hopefully this means your amount of building tours you have to do to show people the challenges.
Oh, we're still going.
Hopefully that stops so you can focus on kids and learning, but really appreciate all the work you do on that.
Thank you.
I appreciate the highlighting a lot of the things you're talking about, or highlighting, for me at least, a lot of the work we are trying to do around like the space issue and the work Anna has been helping lead lately around the fourth floor Cunningham and the Capitol, which we'll talk about later on, and just the real needs to kind of help improve space and address the space challenges within your building. So appreciate that. Your attendance data, I always appreciate you focusing on that, but your attendance data is fantastic. I mean, it is like in the top, in the top 50 schools in the state, and there's like 2,000 schools in the state for chronic absenteeism and other things. So you're doing a great job. Really appreciate all that because we know how important all that is. A couple questions I had was, you mentioned common planning time. How much common planning time are teachers at each grade kind of able to get on a weekly basis?
So there's a contractual answer, and then that's what's happening.
Okay.
So do the teachers want to answer?
Sure.
Okay. Because these teams meet every day, but go ahead.
We meet my third grade meets for lunch every day, so it kind of turns into a common planning for like 45 minutes. But we also just met today. We meet weekly for at least a half hour to 45-minute block. Contractually, I think it's every other week.
Yes.
But we see each other much more. There are many more opportunities for common planning.
And I will just bring up that at Collicott, we do have the challenge of having 5 classes at multiple grade levels, which makes it more challenging to have common planning than at a school with 4 strands, because what we're trying to do is kind of maneuver the schedule so every teacher has a specialist class at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
However, there aren't 5 specialty classes, so the way that we've gotten creative with that at Collicott has been leveraging our lunch and recess teachers, our Unit C teachers, to cover classes, and teachers will leave very targeted independent work that can be done during that time, or some teachers might schedule snack time or a bathroom break or things of that nature during the time, and that's the way we can get the 5 classes together. Ideally, we would love all the kids to be engaged in a specialty class when this is happening, but it's just not possible. So the only way with 5 strands for this to happen outside of the lunch and recess block, which we feel is really important for teachers, although there are those informal touch points at lunch, we want teachers to have a good quality of life and be able to have their lunch without it being a meeting time. Some grade level teams do prefer to do it that way, and we respect those wishes too. But it is a challenge, and scheduling is a challenge with 5 strands to make common planning time happen. I just wanted to state that because each school has their own challenges, and the schools with more strands aren't able to offer it as often. If you have 3 strands or 4 strands at your school, you can get a little bit more creative with it, but with 5 strands, we can only during the school day offer it that one time, and that's kind of like with leveraging all of our resources. We would love to have a schedule where teachers could have common planning time each and every day, but with our size at this time, it's just not possible.
I also want to mention we have Unit C staff. Unit C are our lunch and recess aid teachers, and recess begins at 10:30. We have them come in at 10 o'clock, and typically they'll offer coverage to mostly French teachers so that they can go to common planning. And the thinking is, French teachers have a little less prep time. They all get contractually the same prep time, and they get that. But our English Innovation Pathway teachers get Spanish, and French immersion teachers don't get that. So we try to use our Unit C aides to cover French teachers so they can attend common planning time.
Gotcha. Very helpful. Another question I had was just around observation capacity, the ability to get into classrooms and support teachers with their instruction, and just like how many, it's 2 administrators, your school is getting bigger, right? You're adding more staff even, and your capacity is not necessarily changing. And so just wondering how many people each of you have on your kind of caseload, like your management, in terms of supporting that many teachers, and then like what does that mean in terms of like how often we are able to kind of get into classrooms to help teachers and help them kind of observe and provide feedback on their practice to help them grow.
So I think we both have probably about like 16 or 17, and we are supported by other administrators in the district. So some of our special education team members might be observed by Danielle Wetmore. Some of our teachers are observed by other curriculum coordinators, including Christy Chapetta, Barbara Wright. So it is a team approach. Holly and I do pride ourselves in being in and out of classrooms all the time, and sometimes it's more like an informal kind of coming in. Oftentimes, one of the biggest gifts is we don't like when children are tardy, but when kindergarten children are tardy, we always walk them to the classroom because it's hard to find it when you're 5. So we walk them, and I always find myself staying just to see what's happening, and often I'll be like, oh, Catherine, what was that opener you were doing with the kids? And we can have those kind of informal conversations. We do also have a contractual obligation to go in and do the more formal observations. And so we do those, and we use Vector Solutions as our tool to give feedback there. Typically before goals are due, we go to common planning time so we can see what teachers are focusing on and thinking about what resources and connecting teachers to the resources that they need. But I think the hardest part for us is we go and we observe, and then finding a quiet time to write it up in a timely manner and give the feedback. That can be a challenge, but we are really on track and seeing everybody in the time that they need. But it's definitely a challenge. You can have the best laid plans, and then you're called to support in another area, so you have to observe on a different day. But we're making it work, and sometimes I'll be in a classroom and I go, oh man, I wish I brought my computer. This could have been the observation, because we're just in and out all the time.
I think what's been helpful is that we've been given the opportunity to look at the lists and strategically take on grade levels. So it's more manageable when you're thinking about grade level goals, and our teams have really worked hard on having common professional and student learning goals, so that's been really helpful. I sat in on a common planning time with first grade, and I watched teachers look at phonics data, and so I was sitting in on common planning, but it was a great opportunity for me to evaluate teachers based on a looking at student work session. And so we try to maximize every moment we can, IEP meetings, data meetings, common planning time, in addition to classroom observations. It is the most challenging part of my job to get that piece of it done. And every single year I say I'm going to be better at this. And it is the follow through, I find, finishing that piece, writing it up. That's the hardest part, but we scramble and we do get it done. I wish we had more time.
Yeah, I mean, 17 is a lot, in addition to all the operational and cultural and family engagement and communication pieces and everything else. But I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, just one thing. Sorry, I had forgotten my thought and it just came back. No, but I wanted to just thank you for bringing in the data on the survey you administered. I think we often don't get to sort of get that level of information in terms of even tenure, how long your teachers have been there, and that, sort of, it's not then surprising that your results are what they are. So it's great to have that snapshot of who's in the building and what they're pursuing, right? And this sort of hunger for continued growth and learning, I think, speaks volumes to the culture you've set and the folks that are in the building. And so I just wondered if there's an opportunity to share that survey across the different schools, so maybe somebody doesn't have to recreate it. It's like there's a survey that's
Definitely.
been done.
The 4 elementary principals, we do have our own little chat going constantly, and tomorrow at 9 a.m. the 4 of us will meet together, and I'll be sure to share it with them. It was honestly something we did to get ready for our teaching and learning meeting, and I asked them to do it on a Friday at 2 o'clock, and like Friday by 5 o'clock we had most of what we needed. and a few people asked if they could still do it. And when we shared the data with the teachers at the staff meeting on Monday, they began talking more and said, oh, I wish I said this, but what I meant was this. And it was really, really good talk, and it helped us be ready to do the teaching and learning meeting on Monday night. So it was, I mean, things are going well at Collycott, and it definitely is connected to our low turnover rate. There's no mystery. We're very lucky to have the staff we have.
I feel like every site council presentation is exciting because there's always something that I have that thought, you know, wow, like this is something that would be really great if it could be shared, if it could be expanded. And I feel like it's an exciting time because we have this relatively newer focus on systems district-wide. So I actually feel like hopeful that there could be good opportunities to, and I know with the focus on HR for the district, you know, I actually feel like that sounds like doable thing to do. And I was also going to highlight that piece that you raised, Selena, but also I was so just admiring and appreciative of the data you're sharing around your Unit D folks in your school, and just not only retention, but advancement, and how sort of intentionally you're supporting their advancement. I think that's awesome. And that right there is like needs to be a district-wide strategy, if, you know, more than it has been. And hopefully as we have a full-time director of HR going forward, that can become something that we are really investing in as a district, and you're modeling for us like how that can really pay off. So thank you so much. That's really
That
exciting.
is our summer work. Unit D is our summer work. So we may have, the few hires that we do have to make over the summer for Unit A, they're very competitive. And I know you've all served on a hiring committee or been on the other side. It is rigorous, but we don't have as many Unit A's to fill. But Unit D's is always something that we have to pursue. And I think that we have a very targeted eye. These are important jobs. These aren't like, let me try out education. And like, these are some of the most important people in our building. And they really make the day for many children. So we take it seriously, and I think we've learned from experience. And again, we've been very grateful. And I think finding and growing our staff is something we're really committed to.
Yeah, I completely agree with the points both of you made around just the importance of the survey, the connection of that to the HR director position, to just build capacity, to a point, Peter, you made earlier about the other position, so that all these things are things we can just make sure we're putting more time in to hear greater voice amongst our staff through some type of formalized survey. The other piece is like the goal you mentioned around staff diversity, because I think within the district that is definitely a place we are not excelling at.
Yep.
And can do much better, and we know the impact that can have on our students of color to have those experiences of educators of color within their building. And so I think the goal for Collycott, but also just for us in the district as a whole, of how we do that and how we can leverage kind of the additional investment within an HR director position as we kind of talk about the budget. So the connection to all those things, I think, is really important. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. Thank
Keep up the amazing work.
And save, is it Wednesday, February 7th? Might be the 5th. You'll hear from me. But we hope to see you. It's definitely one of my favorite dates at Collycott, and we have
Wednesday the 5th.
We try to, you've been there.
It's so amazing.
You read last year.
Everybody needs to do it if you're available. It's fun.
I'll
So
send a
fun.
formal invite,
Yeah.
but it's just fun. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Anything else under your report?
I think that's it.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so next will be the chair's report, and I just have a couple of quick updates, and then we'll move into the mid-cycle evaluation conversation. So The first update that I just wanted to share pertains to the article we submitted about the school building committee roster. That was at our last meeting that we approved that article, submitting that article. Last night, the select board had the opportunity to discuss it, and I just wanted to share a quick update, which is that they approved they accepted the article. They did offer an edit to the article, which I take as a sort of helpful clarification, procedural edit. What they proposed doing was to add, if you recall, the way the article was listed, which we had attempted to do, just really strictly with the language from MSBA to make sure that the proposed additions to the school building committee would be aligned with what MSBA requires. So if you recall, we had added a number of non-voting positions who are staff positions that meet the requirements. The only suggestion from last night's select board meeting was that we also just add into the language of the article as written the list of existing members on the school building committee who are
voting.
The voting members. That's 5 appointed by the moderator, 2 school committee, and 2 select board appointed. And so it doesn't change the substance in any way of the article that we had proposed. It just sort of puts all the list of all the members of the newly proposed school building committee like in one place, in one list within the text of the article. So I don't, I'm just sort of informing you that this was the discussion. I don't believe that it requires us to revote the article, and accept that change in a formal sense, because it, as I'm saying, it's really
Procedural.
just a procedural sort of edit that I think provides clarification and doesn't actually change the roster, does not change the recommendation that's being made.
Was there a second also in a similar vein to that the 1.5 would be spent starting May 1? That wouldn't be spent prior to May 1?
They
Was
had
that added?
they had more discussion of that article, which the school building committee had presented.
Yeah.
And I do think that was, there seemed to be some different understandings of the language and what's required. And they did discuss that one at more length to try to sort of bring clarity to what MSBA actually requires.
Right.
I think especially because that is my understanding from where that got left off in the discussion last night was that there may be some ideas about like the recommendation, the way the recommendation would be
As
worded,
opposed to the language.
but that's actually something the warrant committee produces, not the select board. And so that was sort of where they came out on that. The article that we had presented, the discussion was very, it was non-controversial and it was a short sort of clarification, just adding that the existing roster to the newly proposed additions to the roster. So if we accept that procedural edit, generally speaking, certainly if any of you have questions or concerns about that, then you can raise those, but I don't think it requires us to have a formal discussion or certainly not a formal vote to accept the change. Does anyone have questions about that? Okay, so I'll just follow up to let Nick Milano know that, we're moving forward as with the what was discussed last night, and that seems reasonable and helpful. So that's one quick update. The other update that I just wanted to highlight, I know that we all received an email. There is this Milton Health Department Community Health Planning Forum taking place next Wednesday at the Council on Aging, and we got an email from Lori Stillman, who's a former school committee, now working with the health department. It was inviting us as school committee members to attend that forum and participate. It will be an opportunity to just hear updates from the work that's been happening, and also provide input, is my understanding. I am unfortunately unable to attend. I have a work conflict, which was why we were originally having our governance retreat that night. If you recall, we changed it because I have to do this other thing. Are you able to go? I was wondering if anybody is able to go and planning to go, which would be great to be able to have the school committee represented there.
Yeah, I attended their meeting once during the campaign season to learn more about the town, and it was great discussion. So they invited me to go this year, and so I said, sure, why not?
Okay, great. So you're able to attend.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I will bring back the report.
Okay, thank you, Bao, for doing
problem.
that. I'm glad someone is able to go and represent us. So thank you. And certainly, if anyone else wants to go, we're all invited. But thank you, Bao, for being there. So at least one of us will be in attendance. That's great.
Thank you.
Okay, so those are the only updates that I have under just the general chair's report. The main item that we have under here for this evening, of course, is the superintendent's mid-cycle evaluation. And we have in our folder a thorough document. Thank you, Peter, for having prepared this and shared it with us. So just, I guess, to frame where we are, at this midpoint of the year. So for anybody watching the meeting, you may recall that at the beginning of the school year, the school committee, of course, we set our goals. The superintendent also sets goals for the year. It's helpfully framed sort of in the context of what will be the end of cycle summative evaluation report using a framework that DESI provides. And Peter, you had identified for us at that time what your various goals were in the context of focus indicators that you would intend to focus on this year. So since you set those goals, we really have not, you've been busy like doing the first half of the school year, and now at the mid-year point, it's our opportunity to just hear from you, a check-in about progress that you've been making as we hit this midpoint. And just for folks to understand sort of where this is situated in the larger process, the subcommittee, the evaluation subcommittee, which is myself, Anna, and Mark, will be meeting on February 3rd. Sort of to kick off our work, which will happen most in earnest through the month of March. And that will drive towards an evaluation, a final evaluation, summative discussion for hopefully slated for April 2nd. And just a reminder to everybody that the reason for this is not how we've always done it, but we shifted to this last year in recognition of the timing with our elections in Milton and wanting to make sure we could complete the evaluation cycle with the current school committee, those of us who have had the opportunity to be working with you this year, Peter. And that is why it's very early. It's obviously
I've had to do it in January before, so
okay,
this is
so it's
not bad.
It's not the earliest, but it's helpful because it does allow all of us to be with you through the cycle from start to finish for this academic year, even though it does mean your performance is being evaluated on less than a full year. So that's also something we acknowledge. But a lot more to come on that for right now. We just get to hear from you sort of where we are in the midpoint. And if you want to just like walk us through this, highlight anything, and then we'll have the opportunity to ask him questions.
Great. I mean, and it does. I mean, my vision of this is it kind of is a year of, after town meeting is, to me, is kind of when it starts. So when I come forward, not necessarily these goals, which we affirm in September, but the assessment of the different standards are definitely will include all sorts of evidence from the summer, from last summer, in terms of work we did. So just in terms of thinking about it, I think it's kind of thinking about the year starting in May and ending in April.
Makes sense.
So I'm going to just go over the different goals that we've established. I'll talk a little bit about it, and then happy to answer questions, etc. I can't believe we're already at mid-year, and I feel like we've done a lot, and there's a lot left to do. So the first goal is student learning goal. The main focus of the student learning goal is to put in the hands of all staff the ability to access data of all of our students, to slice and dice data, to be able to look at subgroup data. We talk a lot about closing the opportunity gap, and it's hard to do that when you don't really know in all of the different assessments that we have where your students are in your class. So one of the exciting things about Performance Matters and why I put this as a main goal for me and for us this year is to enable our staff and our leadership as well to utilize this data dashboard and then have conversation about it as we look at all the systems change that we're making. This is going to be a key piece of moving us to where we want to go. So we had initial training, and we talked about this in a little bit in October when we talked about MCAS, and follow-up support to teachers to help them understand what the dashboard is, how to use it. There has been, and you can chime in anytime you'd like to, because Regina works directly with V and others on this, on Performance Matters. An immediate acknowledgement from staff that, wow, like this is something that is really powerful, and I wish I had had this a long time ago. It has enabled conversation at common planning time, where grade level teams are meeting and talking about their data, at department meetings where people are looking at data across different courses that they're teaching. We're both teaching calculus. How are your students doing? How are my students doing? So it's enabling us to engage and design structures because like a lot is going to happen on its own organically, and then there's a lot of opportunity to build structures into something like this to be able to move even further. So I think we're at the point right now where it's exploratory. People are seeing what it can do. It's impacting intervention. It's impacting how teachers are designing within their class, and helping to see different parts, helping them to see their students differently too.
With your encouragement, with Peter's encouragement, it's really been a focus of our professional development too. Many of the half days have been spent on Performance Matters and helping teachers, as he said, explore and use that data. And we've gotten excellent feedback about it and from it. And we've done it at the school level and in department levels.
Yeah. So this feels like, as I mentioned, I think we've done some initial work. I think there's so much possibility with this in terms of as we build the different pieces of our instructional framework. This will continue to be a really kind of central part of it, because we can't to be in the process of continual improvement all the time. We need to know where we need to focus, and we also need to have a better understanding of, at a really as granular level as possible with all of our assessments, kind of like what the patterns are. And there are all sorts of patterns that you can see when you start looking at your data really closely. So I feel like this goal is going well, and a lot of room to continue to grow with this. So the second one, professional practice goal, is continuing the work to bring kind of clarity to our central office team. The beginning of the year, we really spent a lot of time with our 2 new positions, splitting our previous joint HR and curriculum position into 2, trying to understand how those 2 positions would operate. But there's also, within the district, there are so many well-worn pathways of how things are done, and they're not necessarily logical. And working to not just put things on paper and say, here's our new procedure for this, this, and this, but to engage people in understanding how it works. And I think when I look at this goal, and you can see kind of what I wrote here in terms of the different actions that I've taken and we've taken. I think one of the big shifts we've made this year is putting forward the expectation that we're going to, when we're working on a problem, when we're trying to find a solution, we're not just going to contact 8 different people and hope that we get the right answer, but we're going to collectively, in a really professional way, we're going to stop, we're going to engage, we're going to understand who's in charge of this thing, and then we're going to make our way through. So in some ways, I feel like a lot of this work is slowing people down and helping people to see. And with that, obviously, comes the building out procedures. We're working on an administrative handbook so that any principal that comes into MPS, or current principals as well, understand how things are done. And right now, one principal may do things this way, another principal may have learned to do it a different way. They both are working right now. It may be that one principal is calling one person and working on something, and then someone's working with someone else. So we still have a lot of that kind of, I think that kind of reality that we're continuing to talk about as a leadership team to kind of piece through and really see the need to formalize that. So I think that is work that is has been impactful. It's a lot slower than you would expect it would be. And I think some of that is just the human nature of this work, and the fact that, as I said, it's about helping people to work together in certain ways. It's not a handbook alone will not shift this. It's about culture. Mm-hmm. And so I put a lot of emphasis on this, and when I step back and look and see where we are even now as compared to the beginning of the year, I feel like we've been through a lot of kind of little things, not like big things, but as a professional team, we've been through a lot, and I think we've grown a lot, and I feel good about where we're headed. So the 3 district improvement goals are directly out of the implementation plan. And the intention, as I mentioned previously, to doing this is this is the focus. This is the action plan for this year. And so you can see in district improvement goal 1 is academic excellence, 2 is climate, culture, and well-being, and 3 is facilities, finance, operations. And the different work that our action teams have done and that I've done in terms of directing that work. One of the challenges with school in session and 1,000 things coming at you at once is maintaining a real focus on this work, because sometimes it just feels like success is keeping everything running smoothly and dealing with these kind of 18 fires that came up this week and these other issues. And it's something that this year, as we've worked with our action teams and have come together as a central office group to kind of coalesce and see, like, how are you doing? How is your group doing? How is your group doing? Because we're all leading different action teams. I think we've made a lot of really strong progress, and I would say every action team, the report from every action team is that we're doing really well. I think the next step for us, and I would say we're poised as we look ahead to March, which is our second full professional development day, which is a big day to bring staff together. We spent this morning, we were talking about this, and Regina's spending a little bit of time thinking about this. I think the piece that we're missing right now, and it's planned, it's intentional, is creating product to bring back to staff to get feedback. The work that we're doing is of a magnitude where we need ownership from as many people as possible, and especially from all of our educators, as we look at pretty big moves, and we'll be sharing some of this in our next meeting with our second quarterly report. But we need to engage staff to kind of understand what we're working on in these action teams, which, while we're sharing some information out, that really only gets you so far. You can't send email updates out and expect people to feel really connected to something. So that is something that, as we, in terms of an update on this body of work collectively, I think we're in a really good place right now, but we do have to be very intentional around how we bring our staff who shared and talked about, all the things in the priority report that they articulated that they wanted to work on and they wanted to see change. We have to figure out how to bring them into this work to help shape it and then continue at moving that work forward. And some of this work, as you know, if you remember the timelines, is going to go over 2 or 3 years. So it's not, the end of the year is not the end for some of this work. It continues on. So that's something that I'm thinking about right now. We're talking about, we're working to plan to make sure that we have enough to bring to staff when we can do this in person in March. It's March 4th, is that? March 4th, yeah. And that will kind of be the main focus of that professional development. So that's kind of just an overview of kind of mid-year where things are right now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Questions? Comments?
I just appreciate the detail with which you're kind of filling this in and walking us through it. Great, very, very appreciative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would also just add that I think a lot of this, you see evidence of it here and there. Just having sat now through, this is my 3rd year of just listening to even site council presentations. Mm-hmm. You hear some of your language and sort of your approach starting to filter through, which I think, it's good to see that level of evidence so early in the process, because I agree with you that this type of work doesn't happen in a year or 2. It takes time. But if done well, it really sets the district up for progress over time. Yeah. And so I really appreciate that as someone who cares about systems a lot and values process more than product. I really do. I've seen it, and it's working. And I hope that as a committee, we continue to be patient and supportive of that process, because it will pay dividends. It just takes time.
Yeah.
else? So Amanda, just since this is your first time going through this, and this is our second time through this version of this process, which is much more clear and rigorous than previous iterations of the evaluation that I observed and participated in. What you can expect in the sort of coming months is, and really when you return, Peter, in March, to share with us evidence, sort of concrete evidence, specific sort of artifacts, data that builds upon the detail. I agree, Mark, this is a very detailed overview. But that's kind of where we'll go from here, is just you'll continue fleshing out, kind of pointing us, I guess, in the direction of where we can look to assess like the progress that has been made on the different indicators. So this mid-year piece is this kind of summarizing the progress to date, and then at the end of the process, we receive like a comprehensive set of evidence that we then have the opportunity to sort of provide our own analysis that feeds into a collective evaluation tool. So,
and as I mentioned earlier, it includes the standards too. So it's I have a self-assessment of the 4 standards, how I feel like I performed, and that's part of what the goals kind of support those standards too.
Okay. So thank you for, I mean, you make our jobs easier, I think, by being so well organized with this, and also, you know, I really appreciate what you just said, Selena. I think that's an important reminder for all of us. And, you know, I think you're something I'm reflecting on at this table now is the way in which you prioritize distributed leadership is really valuable. And that is something that, like you were talking, you know, we see anecdotal data in the ways your language and priorities sort of appear within at the school level in the site council presentations. And also you are you have built a team, and you are developing a team that allows you to do a lot of this work, which is more than one person can actually achieve on their own. And that's like, I think a facet of your leadership, or characteristic of your leadership as well, which you do deserve credit for, even when, you know, it might be like great work you're doing, Regina, to plan the professional development. Like it's happening in a shifting culture, which is something you're driving. So it's exciting to see this laid out this way.
Can I just add something? And I think, and I don't know like historically how it's been done, but I think for me, coming in, and I think this has sort of been a consistent theme, this shows there's a level of transparency that I don't think I've seen before. And I think knowing sort of, you know, having people have access to the priority report, knowing what the goals are, I think it's just common. It's sort of like, do it, say it, show it. You know, that's like, there's a consistency to it, but even looking through, you know, some of this around, you know, working with Katie on the budget, like there aren't questions. You're not thinking like, what am I missing? I keep coming back to transparency, and I think that comes through, and even just saying, here's what I'm doing, here's where I am so far, and here's where I'm going, is just very helpful. And I think it's, you know, especially for me coming in, as I said, not knowing how it was done before, but appreciating that it's, there's just a lot of clarity around it, which I think is really helpful and I appreciate. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, to be continued.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I mean, I know you said like other people's work reflects well on me, or I mean, that I should take credit for it, but I do have a great team.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like all true. Yeah.
Right?
We accuse him that no one would ever accuse him of not collaborating. They always drawing people in, love and support, and to really try to support people to do their best work.
I think sometimes new superintendents come in, they're hired, they come in and they're like in a hurry to kind of make their mark, you know, and you see this happen over and over. And we know that, like, especially in more urban districts, the average tenure of a superintendent is like 2 years. So then you can't waste any time. You have to get to work, you have to like produce, you have to show your value. And, you know, you're reminding us, Selena, as school committee members, that like patience is a virtue in our work, but you have a way of like holding that for yourself, which is not the norm, you know, I don't think, in your role. And that's because of that's the environment. It's like incentivizing people to just dive in and kind of, but you, like last year, you slowed that down. Your entry was so methodical, and it took time. It took the whole year, you know, and so I think I appreciate that. It's honestly like not the way that a lot of superintendents operate, and I think you're modeling then for us like how to also try and slow down and appreciate that. And that's what we can also support modeling for the community as well, right? Yeah. That, you know, so many of us are very eager to see changes, improvements, like things that in some cases have been a long time coming. And so it's not easy always to stay patient.
And to take into account that change is happening. So it's not that things are, are stagnant. They're not, they're moving.
Right.
So to know that sort of we're not sacrificing progress for the process.
Exactly.
Progress is happening. But, you know, sometimes the pace of it might not be sort
There's
of
a perfect alignment of the
correct.
two.
And you gotta have
like,
the two.
and it changes because you like move forward and then it kind of like.
Because then the last thing we would want is for progress to happen, but then, you know, sort of shifts happen in whatever, and so then you can't sustain the progress. And so then you've got to start over, and so that's not where you want to be. And I think so holding on to those two is not easy, but it's important in order for sustainability and for maintaining change and progress and growth over time. So I know it's not easy to do, but it's very important. And you're building an excellent team around you. And I think you're bringing out sort of the best in folks to be able to show up and help move the vision forward, because you can't do it alone.
So, great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's the chair's report. So next is finance.
Finance, we had first meeting with the warrant committee, a subcommittee of the warrant committee, I should say, on Monday, which is great. Katie did a fantastic job, as did Peter to a lesser extent. Peter did fine as well. Presented the budget to the committee, to the subcommittee for the first time. So we got that. We got some initial questions, but not a lot. So we're trying to schedule time to meet with them at least twice, 2 more times before the school committee kind of takes its vote on the budget. And we come back, Katie and Peter come back with a more kind of finalized budget, hopefully with some good feedback from the warrant committee. I think that is right now in our calendar for like the beginning of February. So trying to fit that in. So the timeline is very tight. Obviously, there's also been conversations at the select board around the override and the town's portion of that budget and the override as a whole. And so it seems like there was general consensus around need to kind of work towards an override, which is positive news. I think now obviously the question is, what is that number? Trying to work collaboratively with the select board and obviously the warrant committee as well on that piece. It does, just to update y'all, it does appear, and the select board talked about this at a meeting in December, that they don't have a finance committee anymore. So that like part of our path within the finance was to, similar to what we're doing with warrant committee, have like these conversations with select board. It's what we did last year. That is not, we're having conversations kind of with Nick, but not with select board directly. So it seems like they're kind of taking that work and doing it as whole group. At least for this year. I don't know if that's their long-term plan. Anyways, want to make you all aware of that. I know obviously Peter and Katie are having lots of conversations with the town administrator and the treasurer and Amy Dexter, separate from us, and then kind of coming back and keeping us informed. But that's the work. We have another, we're trying to fit in other meetings beyond the warrant committee to talk about this and kind of further provide feedback and refine it before coming back to y'all. So we'll have another meeting next week, but there's a lot to do in order to kind of get a number that we can come here and then talk about and hopefully agree to, and then there will be a lot to do even after that to, really make sure we're aligned with the town and then sell this to town meeting and the town as a whole, given it looks like we're going to need to go to a townwide vote for an override. That's kind of where the planning process for the budget currently stands. Anything I missed, Serena? Okay.
You got it.
Anything on y'all's end?
The only thing I would like to add is the information that we presented and shared with Warrant Committee on Monday morning was just the initial presentation that was shared with School Committee in November, and then just a very condensed version of the needs-based budget. We are going to post a copy of the presentation on the school committee under the presentation link. So if anyone is interested, anyone that may be watching this meeting or listening to the meeting, if they're interested in just seeing the information that was shared, that will be available to the public as well. So, and it just details more information about how we came up with the level service budget number for fiscal year 26, and then just some of the needs that we've been talking about that are currently unfunded. It would require additional funding.
Mm-hmm. Any questions? Okay. That's it.
Thank you. So that brings us to policy.
So for policy, we just have a second reading and vote on sections J, K, and L that we reviewed at our last meeting. So I can go ahead and make a motion. Did anyone have any questions before? No, on those? Okay. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the second reading of sections J, K, and L of the Milton School Committee Policy and Procedures Manual. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thanks. That's it.
Thank you.
That's the end of the policy? L? Is L the last one?
Yeah.
I think
Yes.
this is
It is.
the toast.
I don't think any other school committee has ever gotten through it.
Couldn't have done it
From
without
what I've
Glenn.
understood.
Yeah, thanks to y'all and Glenn. Very much.
No, Mark, that's huge. It is important to take a step back, pause, and celebrate it, and appreciate that you were able to lead us through accomplishing that, but from last year through this year, because what this means is no longer will we be referring to a policy and have to look at a date at the bottom of the policy that's anything other than 2024, 2025.
Yeah.
And seriously, there have been policies sitting in our book for 20 plus years that have not been updated. And in some cases, they were really out of date. And
I mean, look at how many we in J. Like we just deleted 25.
It's
That we're just-
streamlining.
I mean,
it's modernizing.
It's amazing.
It's great. Clarifying, and we will have accomplished a lot of things this year, but this right here is one like major one.
Yeah,
So,
and I
thank
appreciate you kind of directing us to go in, that way and say, hey, let's kind of streamline this. And then we can always go back and tackle policies as they come up and, spend time reviewing them. But to just clean up is like really huge.
We've got a good slate now to,
Yeah. It's like a fresh start.
Build the foundation. That's right.
Yeah.
So thank you,
This is
Anna.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you for your
Thank you guys.
persistence.
that was a lot of work.
Thank you for not making me like read each individual one.
Given it's the last one, maybe we should go back and have you do that.
And I wanted to mention this a little bit earlier. I really appreciate you bringing the principal updates back.
Oh, yeah.
The monthly ones, because I think to your point from earlier, it's also nice to I know we see the site council presentations and we get the updates from each schools, but to get that monthly snapshot is so important, and it kind of keeps us kind of up to date and fresh and okay, look at all this progress that they're making from month to month. And so I appreciate you bringing that back.
And
I was
being able
excited
to
see
engage
that.
with community too, when people say, hey, and you're like, oh yeah, and you kind of
Yes,
have an idea
absolutely.
about it.
And I think that is huge for me because, again, to Selena's point earlier, change takes time, but people get anxious because some of the things that they've been waiting on for so long. So it helps to have that information to be able to share. Oh, did you know that we're doing this? And it's great. So when we're out there in the community, I think it also helps us get the message across. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so the last item here is going to be quick, but the capital improvement planning committee. So as obviously I represent school committee on that. We did meet in December, and that was a pretty brief meeting, which was mostly Nick Milano walking through an overview of the capital requests that have been submitted across departments within the town. So that includes Council on Aging, Cemetery, DPW, certainly consolidated facilities, including a lot of school projects as well as town, fire department, health department, parks, police, and then technology appears sort of separately, both for schools and for town with their own requests. So there are a total of about $13 million in requests for FY26. And where things stand right now at that meeting, obviously we know that the request we put forward for the additional funds, that $3.4 million to complete the renovation at the Cunningham fourth floor and library project, that is the largest single request in this series of requests. And so from that initial overview meeting, the plan was that at subsequent meetings, there would be the opportunity to take a deep dive into some of these larger line item requests. There's also a new fire engine being requested, for example. So there will be opportunities for different departments to come before the committee and provide more detail to the request and be able to answer questions. We have the opportunity to be doing this first, which is tomorrow at 7 a.m. On Zoom. And Tom McCarthy is going to take the lead on a presentation to the committee which will just provide more background and detail to that capital request for the Cunningham Collycott renovation project. We will sort of be there as a team to answer questions that may come up from members of the capital committee. And there will also be, I think, separate from that request, given the timeline of the February town meeting, just sort of FYI, there will also be a discussion as well of the warrant article with the 1.5 million request for a feasibility study under MSBA that the school building committee had presented, that we had recommended as well. That will also be on the agenda tomorrow, just because timing wise it needs to be approved by the capital committee, or it needs to be sort of, the capital has an opportunity to process and make a recommendation on that heading to the February special town meeting. Obviously, you know, the bulk of these are intended for the May town meeting. I did express the, you know, desire that we have wished to expedite this this particular request, that it is it would be very helpful to be able to have this or have had this, you know, at February town meeting as well, just because timing wise, realistically, in order to complete the project, you know, the May town meeting in practical terms delays it another year, with the timing of summer, being able to do the work and whatnot. So, you know, I understand that at this point the timing is very tight, and it, you know, that may be something that can come up tomorrow. But I think the expectation at this point, you know, is that this has been included in the FY26 request. So that's kind of where it stands at this point. So there, you know, we will bring back another report at our next meeting, sort of to share the outcome of tomorrow's meeting. But and I don't expect, you know, this tomorrow is really an informational session to help members gain understanding and have that opportunity to answer questions, and that will, as I said, continue with other departments and so forth. So we're not being singled out per se. We are just having this opportunity to bring further information, which I think is going to be helpful. Any questions?
No, just a comment. I appreciate you kind of pushing that forward to try, in the sense of urgency. Obviously, we saw it tonight when Collycott came in and presented, and the need for not having any space if we get more kids as they're getting kids daily. So, so thank you so much and excited to join that meeting. Hopefully, it's positive.
And it is, I know we talk about the fourth floor, it's the third and fourth floor.
Yeah, the library.
So it's that's just something important for people to understand.
Yep. Yeah. Right. Yeah, and thank you, Anna, for your leadership on facilities. Mark, you last year, this has been, I think, a really important collaborative effort. And Tom obviously was not in the role of director of consolidated facilities last year, but I think he's definitely stepping in to be able to provide good leadership in helping us to make clear the reasons for the needs and the costs and whatnot. So that'll be good. And thank you all in advance we're trying to wrap up this meeting so we can go get some sleep before we go on that meeting in the morning. So thank you. Let's see. So that is our last agenda item before approval of minutes. I did have a couple of quick edits that I was just going to point out to the minutes. These are the minutes of December 18th, our meeting, our last meeting before the winter break. And I was just suggesting a little clarification in the portion of the minutes, page 3 into page 4, which are discussing those warrant articles about the 2 different articles on the MSBA. Just to make clear, like, which part of the discussion was about which article. So I've detailed a couple of those edits here to just avoid being redundant, and also just one was not a binding vote. That was our recommendation on the school building committee article, and then the other one was a vote that we took to make our own article submission. So just those were a couple clarifications that I had. Were there any other edits or changes to the minutes? Okay, so in that case, I'll make a motion to approve the Milton School Committee meeting minutes for December 18th, 2024. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, great, thank you. Our next meeting is January 22nd. We'll have the Peer Site Council. We'll also have Q2 implementation plan update from you, Peter. We will have the student representative update. We will bring back the topic of the district calendar as we continue the process there towards approving that. We will vote on the FY26 budget, talk about the FY26 budget.
And on the 22nd?
Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it, okay. And another thing I've noted, it sounds like we'll be pulling together a letter of support, which I think would be something we would vote on for that grant application for the municipal energy manager opportunity. So that's something that we'll have on our agenda.
Yep.
Policy, I'm not sure. I thought we had moved the meeting to the 28th.
Yes, I think we did.
I see we still have okay, so we need the updated invite, but we're not meeting before the next school, so we will not be doing policy at the next meeting. Will we be doing facilities or
School
Facilities.
building.
school building committee?
Will. Yeah, Monday.
Okay. All right. Any other things that come up, just keep me posted so we can make sure those get on the agenda. Otherwise, we didn't quite make it before 9, but it's
close.
9:07. Okay, so
It's not 11.
we'll take I'll make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Great. All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.